Hi, everybody. This is Peter and Amy. I'm a therapist. Amy is a lawyer, and we're talking about the human side of the legal machine. And well, what's all that about? It's unscripted. It's just a conversation we are having to figure out what are humans doing in law? Who do they work with? Who do they work for? And why does it go wrong sometimes? And why does it go really, really well as well? So I know, Amy, you've talked about the difference between being employed in big or medium sized law firms and the contrast of that to being what you call a consultant lawyer.
Yes,
You talk about battery hens versus free range hens. I talk about the legal factory because I see work coming in, lawyers doing something to it, and that raw material, which is the new instruction, the new case, ending up as a finished product, which is a decision, a document, something that the client has asked for and wanted. And all through that, there's a process that involves a lot of thinking and writing and talking. To whom? Well, other human beings. So you and I have been talking about is law a mass-produced product, service? Is it an art form? I mean, where do you see it?
it's definitely something which is a product at the moment, anyways, of the human brain. So you have human beings who are creating the legal product, and that is to some extent maybe going to change with AI coming in, but I think, always need someone just checking and making sure that that things are matching up and lining up. And I very much see it as, even in the biggest law firms, it's a collection of people who are there. And those people have feelings, they have desires, they have needs as human beings. And there can be a bit of tension because of what is required to make companies like that profitable. And it can be difficult in traditional law firms. It isn't always, and you and I discussed that sometimes being employed, it works for someone if they've found a particular place where the demands on them they can meet those and they succeed at those and they are enjoying that. But from my perspective, it can also be a bit of a dark side of the legal industry whereby we aren't treated as human beings. Lawyers are human doings, and they are subject to targets and time recording, where, for example, you have to record every 6 minutes. It's called a unit of time is 6 minutes, and you have to account for, you have to account for every 6 minutes of units. And some firms will want you to record effectively 5 hours, accounting for you to have a lunch break and also a bit of administrative time. So 5 hours of billable time. Whereas other law firms may want you to record 7 hours of billable time, accounting for a lunch break. And that's sort of turning a human being into a human doing and trying to, make them productive and things. And some people are great at that. Some people aren't. I was very good with my time recording, and I actually enjoyed time recording. Whenever I was set a target, I would hit that target, but then I'm the type of person that can handle that kind of pressure. And that isn't for everyone. And I saw quite a lot of lawyers buckle under the same amount of pressure. And so, for me, that wasn't why I decided to become self-employed. Mine was more because I wanted to have a bit more time and decide how I wanted to spend my time. And I knew I could be profitable, and I knew that I could have that money in my own pocket instead of building it into someone else's pocket. So for me, that worked. But in another situation, I could see why someone would want to be part of a bigger machine all going in one direction. And I can see that machine aspect. But, like you were saying, the machine is full of those human cogs, I suppose. Is that what you would say?
It is what I'm implying, because I've seen exactly the same thing happened in, well, I get my stuff from is 18 years as a supply chain consultant, where my job was again the people, the processes, the human side of things, where my colleagues would deal with the more mathematical and engineering type of stuff. And the factories and warehouses that worked the best were where the individuals felt like going to work. They did what needed to be done because they wanted to, not because they had to. Mm-hmm. And I just find it so interesting that something like the legal industry, which is an old one, it's been around for hundreds of years, but so many smart people, so many people deciding and helping other people do the right thing or maybe get away with stuff sometimes, why they are not able to sort themselves out. What happens when we go into law? We say, we are not a lawyer, you know that, but you go into a profession, you want to do good somehow, and you end up feeling really, really rubbish because your colleagues, your bosses are wearing you down. And then you have to escape into another way of doing it. But is that out of necessity or is that out of desire? I speak with so many lawyers as my clients who either do what you've done, run away from big law or medium law into consultancy, one person bands, or go together with somebody, but not as many, or they leave the profession altogether, disillusioned. And it's just such a sad thing that we are treating human beings as machines. I know I was a translator by first education, and I did work for a translation company, and I did feel that my computer got more attention than I did. So why do we treat each other in that way?
I don't know. I mean, I can only speak from my, I guess, personal perspective. And for me, I had no real other choice because I'd at that point had my children and I couldn't figure out being someone who always hit the targets and did the thing and, jumped through the hoop however high. I couldn't figure out how to reach the hoops that were there and be the present parent that I wanted to be. It just was, it didn't line up really for me. I think some people do it beautifully. I think some people do it and they're not happy about doing it. But for me, I just knew that that wasn't going to work. So I didn't really have that choice to stay in the machine. I had to find a new machine. And that's sort of when I, over the, it's been 5 years now that I've been self-employed, that I really thought about this battery hen analogy, which is that and I need to, just preface that by saying there's some people who work in the top 200 law firms and they get on well. And actually, if I hadn't had children, I think I would have stayed and just done, the thing because I was doing the thing and it was great. But life kind of came along. Life has a funny way of doing that. And
yeah.
And the thing for me was that then to reconcile those two I would have been similar to having my feathers plucked out because it was, not having a target set that you're not going to be able to meet, I think is very soul destroying for a solicitor. And I've seen lots of solicitors become miserable because of the targeting and time recording too. It isn't human nature to record time. We don't think necessarily in a linear fashion. We can think about the past. This is what I think differentiates us from other animals. I mean, we're animals, but we can think about the past very clearly. We can project into the future very clearly. We can even imagine parallel universes. We've got with time, we can really kind of be creative. We can lose time as well. If you're lost in your art form, you lose all sense of time, and sometimes you could forget to even eat lunch. And my work is kind of like that for me. I can look down and realize, oh, I didn't eat lunch. I was so busy working on this claim, and yet we're meant to then write it down every 6 minutes that we've spent doing that. Is kind of wild, but that's really why I took the leap. And the battery hen thing was that consultancy then puts the power back into the individual lawyer who can then choose, what do I want to do? What niche do I want to go into? What clients do I want to work with? How much work do I want to take on? How much, do I want to go at it for money? Do I want to do it for time freedom? Do I want to just take a breath and find my feet again and, work out what I'm doing? So it does tend to suit women with children, and men too, who are carrying responsibilities. But that's really where the battery hen, because then you become a free range chicken and you can, pick in the grass and pick up juicy worms and get the outdoor sunshine on you and grow your feathers back.
And talking about animals, we are, as human beings, we are social animals.
Yes.
And we do need that human interaction. Research has suggested that we need about 6 hours per day to feel great. And those 6
Wow.
hours could be with, warm bodies next to us somehow in the office.
Yeah.
Or it could be a Zoom meeting like the one you and I are having now.
Yeah.
But we are not particularly great at being on our own. So when we are on our own, have nothing to do, thinking starts to go south, and we find all the negatives, and that's what I help people with, to get out of that black hole. But also, I help organizations like law firms. Just look at the right in front of you things. Don't make it complicated. Yes, there's AI. It's probably a great tool because it can take all the donkey work away and then let the legal minds and brains do the exciting stuff and turn it into an art form again, instead of just mindlessly looking for something in a document and compare all sorts of things, and your head goes whoosh and all sorts of stuff, which AI would not. And they can spit out something that a human can then review and make an opinion on. But we are human beings, we are complicated, and we do need a bit of structure. And this is what I'm talking about in any size of law firm, even for the individuals, because you could, as a consultant lawyer, you could be totally disorganized, or you could be very organized. But you can be organized to the point where organization gets in the way of doing things. So what I'm looking at is finding out, how do things actually work? How do you do things? Do you do them just because you've always done them that way, or because they work? And every company I've worked for, there's been something that annoyed the living daylight out of the people on the floor, but management didn't want to hear about it.
Yeah.
And so my beef with human beings in organizations, and in my case in law firms, is that they're not talking to each other. There's this hierarchy, there's this fear that someone will come up with a great idea that's better than the one I have. And one of the saddest things I've been met with when I've worked with other companies learning their business from scratch to reasonable level in next to no time is, why do they listen to you, Peter? I've been saying this for the last 5 years. And that is so sad, because I don't have all the answers, but the people who work in the business have the answers. Or what I can do is to create a system, an environment where they start talking to each other, and then have the foundation on which you can put all the sexy stuff.
Yeah, it does sometimes take an external voice to come in and say, whoa, this isn't right, or this could be tweaked and you'll get so much more out of this. And, productivity wise, if you do that. And I know there are a lot of law firms who are changing and making, instead of a micro target of, five billable hours a day, it's a macro target of 35 billable hours a week, and those can be done, however your sees fit, and you can do that. And I think that is great. I think that's very humanizing, because it's accounting for an off day, or accounting for a day where you might be plowing through and you're going to do really well and get all your hours and do a lot then, and then you could front load your week and do it then, and then have time to do what you like with the rest of your week, and it's not moving those goalposts is the important part, is setting those goalposts and giving a reasonable human amount of time in order to hit the goals, and then not moving them, because I think that's another thing that tends to let down traditional law firms, which I certainly experience, and that's that your target is always somewhere where they think it's just within your reach, but also they want it to stretch. So they're trying to stretch you.
Sure.
I knew what was happening, and I never left private practice because of that. I mean, arguably, I'm still in private practice, but I just do it self-employed. I like to stretch goal, and I like to target that was going to be a stretch, but other people, that kind of pressure isn't good for them, and it's like catastrophic. And I'm sure you've seen it, people who've come to you after they've been pressurized under that kind of environment.
Totally.
In fact, there was recently a case I was talking about this morning with another colleague about a junior lawyer, or I think he was newly qualified or not even qualified, a trainee, and he'd padded some time onto a file. So he'd recorded some time on a file which he knew that wouldn't be recovered. And then as a result, he was struck off because of inflating his time. How harsh, like someone very junior under so much pressure to make recording target, and criticized to the point of being struck off. It just seems incredibly harsh, and just because the pressure is so real, and yeah, it's there.
I've seen a lot of comments for and against the argument you just put up there, that either you do it right or wrong, doesn't matter how qualified you are, newly qualified or not.
Yes.
What I'm thinking about pressure is there are so many self-inflicted barriers to getting work done, and if we just remove those roadblocks, the targets would be far easier to reach. And I think at this point that would be people who have an opinion on this, and I think we should invite them to come and comment on this post when they see it, and say thank you for
Are
your
you
views
talking
on
about
this.
procrastination in particular, like individuals or that kind of thing, procrastinating on a task, so they know that what they need to do, but they don't do it? Is that?
But that's something we also talk about, and then why we get to procrastination, because there's usually fear behind it. But for now, I think we have two types of views. We can mass produce law, we can make it an art form, but whatever it is, that we have to look at the human beings, those within the business and those we deal with outside of business, the clients. So Amy, thank you so much for this chat.
Yeah.
And we look forward to seeing you sometime later. Take care.
Absolutely. Thank you.